We've been told, Harris, we've got some odds from the offshore sports books. And you can gamble on this stuff these days.
Of course.
I always do mine at BetDSI, chatsports.com/bet. Use promo code CAM120. But go ahead and toss these bad boys up. Urban Meyer odds to stay. So yes, plus 180, no, negative 220. So for you folks who aren't sitting there putting your paychecks on sports gambling, let me break this down, what this means. This basically means, Harris, it's twice as likely that he will never coach again versus then he will coach. There's no being 220. That means you've got, if you want to win just $100, you got to put up 220. You got to risk 220 through 100. Yes, you put up 100, you get your 100 back, and you get 180 back. So I'm telling you this, Harris, the second we are off this show, I am hitting my BetDSI account, and sure, I am putting money on that he's not gonna be there. I think that I think risking a few $100 and getting negative 220 odds is pretty good.
Pretty nice.
Pretty good odds on that point. So I think that he's not going to stay. You're going to see them have the interim coach Ryan Day for this entire season. And I think after this season, much like after the 2011 season, where Ohio State went 6-7, made it to a bowl game, lost to Michigan in the bowl game to finish with a sub 500 record, I think you're going to see Ohio State go after a big-time coach, just like they did with Urban Meyer, if he is fired. He's certainly not going to happen this year before the season. Ohio State practice starts less than 48 hours away. But here are the odds. What do you think about these?
Well, with the odds here, it's interesting seeing Greg Schiano on top, Ryan Day, they're all the way at the bottom at plus 500. But, James, we put together a list of our own of potential Urban Meyer replacements for 2019. Now, remember, they will most likely have an interim coach if they do remove Urban Meyer this year. Likely will be either Greg Schiano, maybe Kevin Wilson, or Ryan Day. But here are some potential replacements for 2019. Our initial, I should say, top five: Bob Stoops, Tom Herman, Chip Kelly, James Franklin, and Mike Vrabel. Interesting, the number one guy there, Bob Stoops,
let's just
not currently with a job.
Let's go through these one by one, Harris. I've got some thoughts on these. We sat here and kind of thought all of the reasons who would go. So, in my opinion, Bob Stoops is the one. He is basically the equivalent of about 15 years older or 10 years older at the time of where Urban Meyer was in 2011. He is the white whale. He is the guy that's won at the highest level for a long time. Won at Florida in the 90s under Steve Spurrier. Went to Oklahoma for 17, 18 years. Harris, I know you're a little younger than me, just a few years, a couple years, but it was taxes, death, and Oklahoma being ranked in the top 10 are the only sure things that have happened in the world since about 2000, when he came in 99, won that title in 2000. They didn't win another title under him, but they were ranked in the top 5. They were ranked in the top 6 every single year, basically, of Bob Stoops' entire tenure. And now, why would he come to Ohio State? Well, he's been rumored to Ohio State for a long time, of course. He was rumored way back in 2001 after he'd been in Oklahoma for a couple of years, rumored before Urban Meyer, rumored for a lot of jobs. He's from Ohio. Youngstown, Ohio, the cradle of coaches, where Bo Pelini's from, where Jim Tressel's from. Obviously, Bob Stoops and his brothers were also coaches from. More coaches are coming out of Youngstown that are in this 40 to 60-year-old range than you can ever imagine. So I think Bob Stoops, and what's really why I believe that he's the number one candidate, has to be, is he would only go back to college for maybe 1 or 2 jobs that he can come in and win at the highest level. I think those jobs actually might be Alabama or Ohio State, should their coaches leave unexpectedly, like we may have here, and with a stacked roster. There is no one that has a better outlook over the next 5 years or so than Ohio State, with the guys coming in the last 2 recruiting classes and the 2019, 2020 classes. Ohio State is recruiting at the highest levels we've ever seen in the Big Ten, and along with Clemson and Alabama, maybe the highest levels we've seen in college football ever.
The rest of the top 5 here: Tom Herman out of Texas. That'd be really interesting considering he's at his, what he has called his current dream job. Chip Kelly just took the job at UCLA. That'd be a very short tenure for him. James Franklin, the head coach of Penn State, who's done a wonderful job there of reigniting that college program. And then Mike Vrabel, who's the new head coach for the Tennessee Titans, as you mentioned before, an Ohio State legend. Is there a real possibility that Mike Vrabel could leave the NFL behind to come to Ohio State? I mean, he did just get his, he's had a pretty interesting rise in the NFL, going from just a defensive assistant, then to a position coach, then the defensive coordinator last year for the Houston Texans, and now the Tennessee Titans head coach. That is a huge meteoric rise, and then all of a sudden to the Ohio State head coach. How likely is his arrival there?
So would he take the job? I would say 100%. I want to just pull up really quickly. He has coached Ohio State very recently under Urban Meyer. So he was linebackers coach in that transition year when Luke Fickell was the interim coach, much like Ryan Day is going to be likely for 2019, unless they reinstate Urban Meyer in the next 30 days, 31 days from now, they kick off Ohio State does. Then he was linebackers coach at Ohio, defensive line coach, 2012 and 13. So Urban Meyer's first 2 years, he's on the staff. Went to the Texans with Bill O'Brien, and then defensive coordinator there in 17, and then now head coach of the Tennessee Titans coming into his first year. He's not going to leave right now, Harris, so throw that off the cards. That's why it's for 2019. They're not going to hire any outside coach for this season.
If they do remove, this needs to be noted, if they do remove Urban Meyer, it is incredibly likely that one of Greg Schiano, Kevin Wilson, or the current guy, or the now acting head coach Ryan Day, will be placed in that interim head coaching spot.
I think it's going to be Day no matter what. They're not going to put Day in the role for a couple weeks and then switch it all of a sudden. It's going to be Day. If it's not Urban Meyer, the head coach for 2019 will be Day, the current offensive coordinator. So look at this list here. Stoops. Some of these guys have ties to Ohio State. Some don't. Stoops has ties to Ohio. Went to Iowa, but nevertheless grew up in Ohio. Herman was offensive coordinator at Ohio State under Urban Meyer when they won the national title. Then, of course, went to Houston, had a lot of success, and now is the University of Texas for his now coming into his second season. Chip Kelly, no ties to Ohio State, but really one of the bigger names out there. Super successful as a college head coach, super successful as a college coordinator, runs a similar system. James Franklin, he has proven the last 2 seasons he could coach on offense with the best of them. He can recruit with the best of them in the Big Ten. Really has made has made Penn State kind of the 1B to Ohio State's 1A in the Big Ten over the last 2 seasons. That would be a great coach. No ties to Ohio, but he is one that could come in and ride the Urban Meyer train for the next decade of success. We see some of these other guys coming on the list. Schiano, the current D coordinator, Mark Dantonio, Ohio State defensive coordinator when they won the national title in 2002 under Jim Tressel. Matt Campbell, University of Toledo head coach, formerly at Iowa State, had some really nice success, a few huge upsets last year.
Big wins for them.
Currently Ryan Day, of course, maybe he has an amazing season. They go 11-1, make the playoff. You can't not have him be the head coach,
Butch
right?
Jones?
Yeah, maybe, right?
No.
And then Justin Fuente, who was up for a lot of jobs this offseason, has only been at Virginia Tech for a short amount of time, but had them playing very high-level ball. He was a candidate for some positions this past season, didn't get any of them. Virginia Tech is not like a lower-level school, of course.
Right.
They're a A- B+ level job. Ohio State is A+. With them and Alabama and maybe Clemson, but although I think that Clemson, if they lost, if they lost their head coach Dabo, I don't think they would be able to get the levels of coaching we're putting here for Ohio State. I think is the cream of the crop. You asked me about Vrabel, by the way. He would absolutely take the job over.
Mind you, people, I was kidding about Butch Jones. We're getting some comments on Facebook. No, Butch Jones is not going to become the next head coach of Ohio State. James, if this all does go down, Urban Meyer is gone. They go through a year with Ryan Day as the head coach. Who do you think they'd hire as the next coach?
I think that much like Urban Meyer in 2011, throughout that season when they had an interim coach, they would go after Bob Stoops. He's not that old. Producer in my ear that said they're going to get me Stoops' age, but I think it's 55, 56, so he's got plenty of time. He's 10 years or more younger than Nick Saban is right now, only a year or two older than Urban Meyer. So Stoops has plenty of tread on the tires. Had Oklahoma, the year after he left a playoff team, right? He left a Heisman Trophy winner in Baker Mayfield, #1 pick. He's only been out of the game for 1 year. At this point, he'd be out 2 years. I would recruit him for the next 6 months, next 4 months until the day after their last regular season game, and I would offer him a mother load 6-year, $75 million contract. If he said no, then I think the order is there. Then you go after Tom Herman. If Texas has success, if Texas goes 6-6, 7-5, I think Herman drops way down the list, and guys like Chip Kelly, if he has success, and some others move up the list. So that's who I would go after. I recruit Stoops for 4 months. If you don't get him, you go down the list, Harris. But this coming up, by the way, Stoops, 57 years old, only 3 years or so older than Urban Meyer. This quote that you're going to talk about here is incredibly damning to Urban Meyer's future with Ohio State.
So last year, once all the NCAA allegations, or I guess the allegations against the AA for college basketball and all the scandals that were coming out with Louisville and Rick Pitino, Urban Meyer had a very interesting quote about it all, saying, quote, "If you lie, you can never coach again." And again, like you said before, there's a difference between lying to the media. There's a difference between, just lying to your players and maybe even lying to your other coaches. But when you know about a domestic violence allegation against one of your coaches and you refuse to tell your Title IX administrator at Ohio State, you're done. And if it comes out that he knew and did not tell anyone at Ohio State about it, unfortunately, look, I'm not saying that these are on the same scale at all, but that was the core reason why Joe Paterno ended up getting fired, because he knew about it and didn't tell anybody. And again, very different scales, very different situations. But if Urban Meyer knew about this and refused, held information about a domestic violence allegation about one of his coaches, and then fired him this year after another allegation, you can't have that at your school, especially a school like Ohio State.
So as we throw the graphic up there, should Ohio State fire Urban Meyer? I said no, but they will, Harris. I think you've kind of gone the yes side. I don't think he did the abusing, but he covered it up.
Yes.
So I'm 51-49 in this one. I think they should suspend him for 6 games, suspend him for a season maybe, give him the opportunity to come back. He's had a pretty good track record. But think about this. Zach Smith's wife, at the end of the Brett McMurphy story, said if Smith was fired, he told her by Ohio State he would do everything he can to take down Ohio State, everyone in the program. So we have yet to hear from Zach Smith, the kind of man at the center of all of this controversy. And I think that if we do hear from him, it is going to be a wild conversation with who gets that interview.
We do have a statement from Urban Meyer saying, Gene and I agree that being on leave during this inquiry will facilitate its completion. This allows the team to conduct training camp with minimal distraction. I eagerly look forward to the resolution of this matter. End quote. One final time for those who are just joining us. Urban Meyer, the head coach of Ohio State football, has been placed on administrative leave following a bombshell report this morning by Brett McMurphy. James, one final quote from you. What do you make out of all this?
I think he's done, Harris. They're going to look into it. They're going to see text records. They're going to see who knew. And, we'll have an interim coach, and they'll have one of the greatest coaching searches of all time, probably starting end of November of this season. So we're going to loop this back. If you're watching, keep commenting. We're going to play the whole show again for the next few hours. Stay with us. Urban Meyer has been placed on administrative leave for the Ohio State Buckeye football team.